Hey everyone, David MacDonald here, owner and founder of Vitality Fitness Calgary. Welcome to Q&A Thursday, where you ask us your questions and we give you answers. This week, our question comes from Lisa. Lisa actually posted this on Facebook, and her question is, what exercises can I do that won't aggravate my hips? Great question, Lisa. Thanks so much for asking. Now, the big thing we gotta look at here is, what do you define as hips? Okay, hips can mean hip flexors, it can mean glutes, it can mean piriformis. So in order for us to actually answer that question, we have to get a little bit more specific. Now what I'm going to do today, just to give a straight, easy answer to this question, I'm going to assume that you're talking about hip flexors. Most people, when they refer to hips, are referring to their hip flexors, okay? So I'm going to answer it with that in mind. Now, when we're thinking about the hip flexors, what the hip flexors are involved with is flexing the hips. So whenever we flex the hips, what we're doing is we're actually decreasing the angle between our thighs and our hips. Or sorry, our thighs and our upper body. Pointing at my hips and my upper body. So anytime we're decreasing the angle of the hip joint, okay, in relation to the thigh and the upper body, okay, that is known as hip flexion. Okay, when we're increasing the angle between our thigh and our upper body, that's known as hip extension. Okay, so we're going to do a squat. Okay, I'm going to show you guys just a little quick squat here. As I lower into my squat, okay, the angle between my torso and my lower body is decreasing, okay, known as hip flexion. So as I get lower into my squat, this angle decreases. Okay, as I start to stand, I create hip extension, which increases the angle between the upper body and the thighs. So the reason I'm explaining this to you guys is you want to understand what the hip flexors are responsible for. So the hip flexors are going to be responsible for any kind of movement where we're decreasing the angle of the hip joint when we're comparing the thigh and the upper body. So when we're lowering into a squat, it's going to be one example. Hip flexors are also involved when we're lowering into a lunge, okay, when we're lowering into a split squat. So those are some of the exercises that are probably going to aggravate you if you have an issue with your hip flexor. Now, what can you do to work around this issue? A couple things I would recommend. Number one, if you're going to be doing squats, what I would recommend doing is grabbing a TRX strap and doing an assisted squat on the TRX strap. If you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on YouTube, we do have a video on there detailing the bodyweight squat on the TRX strap, so you can watch that. So that's number one. You can actually decrease the stress that's being put on the hip flexor by getting some assistance from the TRX strap. Okay, so that's option one. Option two is we can do what's called a step up. Okay, step up could cause a bit of aggravation in that area, but the benefit of a step up is that we can do the hip extension aspect of the move, and then we can just stop or eliminate the part where we create hip flexion. Okay, so that's another option, is we can do the stepping up portion of the step up. Again, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you follow us, you can check out our video. It's an exercise of the week video that we have on step ups. You can check that out on our YouTube channel to get more information on that. Okay, the other thing that we could do is we could not even worry about working the front of our legs. We could transfer it to something like a deadlift or a hamstring curl if we wanted to work the legs, okay, the back of the legs primarily. So when we're doing a deadlift or a hamstring curl, okay, next to no hip flexion involved with those movements, okay, mostly hip extension. We're working the hip extensors, which are the glutes and the hamstrings. And those are very safe exercises to do if other movements aggravate your hips. Okay? The other option we could possibly do is we could reduce the range of motion on things like lunges, split squats, things like that. So depending on when your hips start to hurt, we could stop before that point so you're still getting some leg work. So for example, if I was doing a forward lunge and I get down to about here and my hip flexors start to aggravate or feel aggravated, I can stop before that point and just step back, okay, and just do a half forward lunge. So I'm still getting some work on my glutes, my quads, without aggravating my hips. The other thing I can do within this movement pattern is I can really control it on the way down. Okay, because I'm working the muscles harder, and I'm stopping before my hips become aggravated or feel aggravated. So it's a great question, Lisa. I hope I answered your question. I know I went on a little bit of a tangent there. It really depends, like I said before, on what you define as your hip. For this video, we're defining hips as the hip flexors. So if you do have any hip flexor issues, those are some of the exercises that you can incorporate to work around that limitation. Now, in terms of deadlifts and hamstring curls, again, you can watch videos on those two exercises on our YouTube channel. We do have videos that explain how to do those exercises correctly. So if you don't know what a deadlift is, you don't know what a hamstring curl is, you can watch those videos as well. Thanks so much for your question, Lisa. Thanks so much for tuning into Q&A Thursday. Stay tuned for next week.